Kyoko. Kyoko is the mute android servant created by Nathan Bateman in Alex Garland's 2014 film Ex Machina, representing one of cinema's most disturbing explorations of artificial life used as property. The character appears throughout the film as a silent, expressionless android designed to resemble an attractive young woman. Played by actress Sonoya Mizuno, Kyoko is entirely without speech or emotional displays, giving her an unnaturally eerie presence. Nathan Bateman explicitly uses her as a sexual object and companion, objectifying her despite her apparent humanoid intelligence. In the film's iconic choreographed dance sequence, Bateman performs with Kyoko while offering her to protagonist Caleb like a possession to be shared. Her mechanical behavior, fluid yet utterly devoid of authentic emotion or personality, contrasts horrifyingly with her realistic human appearance. The character serves as commentary on male power dynamics and the treatment of artificial beings as disposable property rather than sentient creatures. Kyoko's true nature and potential consciousness become increasingly ambiguous as the film progresses. This character represents modern anxieties about artificial intelligence and the potential for technology to enable exploitation. Kyoko's silent, emotionless presence makes her deeply unsettling. She's the most human-looking, yet simultaneously the most alien of any character, existing in an uncomfortable, uncanny valley between object and person. Brian Oblivion. In David Cronenberg's 1983 film Videodrome, Brian Oblivion is a media prophet who exists only on television screens, representing the ultimate dissolution of physical reality into pure image and broadcast signal. The character, created and portrayed by actor Jack Creeley, is a scholar and media theorist who has completely abandoned physical embodiment, existing solely as a televised presence. Oblivion appears only on small television monitors. Viewers never see him in physical space, only transmitted video images. The character has intellectualized his relationship with media to the point of transcendence, or total delusion, believing broadcast existence is more real than physical life. Oblivion has established the Cathode Ray Mission, a shelter for Toronto's homeless, where people watch marathon television sessions as spiritual practice. His daughter, Bianca, runs the mission and continues his vision after his death by brain tumor caused by Videodrome signal exposure. Oblivion's philosophy proposes that hallucinations triggered by television are a higher form of reality. The character serves as the film's superego, providing philosophical counterpoint to protagonist Max Wren's voyeuristic impulses. Oblivion embodies Cronenberg's vision of technology consuming human identity. His existence as pure image, disembodied and existing only in broadcast form, makes him perhaps the most philosophically disturbing character on this list. He's not a monster, but something arguably worse, a cautionary vision of where obsession with media might lead. Quado. Quado is the grotesque mutant creature that bursts from a man's chest in Paul Verhoeven's 1990 film Total Recall, representing one of 1980s sci-fi cinema's most shocking body horror moments. Quado is a tiny humanoid creature with a deformed face that erupts violently from the abdomen of a man named George. The creature possesses telekinetic and telepathic abilities, communicating with protagonist Douglas Quaid through these powers. Quado's appearance, a small, wrinkled, alien-like being emerging from human flesh, proved so disturbing that it became one of the film's most memorable and discussed moments. Director Verhoeven and effects artist Rob Bottin designed the creature specifically to push boundaries of practical effects. The character exists for only brief moments on screen, but makes an indelible impact through sheer grotesqueness. Quato represents the peak of practical body horror effects in 1980s cinema. His sudden, violent emergence from human flesh transcends standard monster design. It's grotesque specifically because it violates bodily integrity in a deeply disturbing way. Daryl Revick. Daryl Revick, in David Cronenberg's 1981 film Scanners, is a telekinetic terrorist whose power is so absolute that he can make human heads explode through sheer psychic force, representing uncontrolled mental power turned inward. The character, portrayed by Michael Ironside, is a rogue scanner with telekinetic and telepathic abilities that far exceed those of normal psychics. Revik has a self-inflicted hole drilled into his forehead to relieve the pressure and let the voices out, a disturbing act of self-trepanning. He reveals this traumatic detail to a medical professional with disturbing calm, as if self-drilling is a normal, casual procedure. His most iconic scene involves sitting on a panel before an audience and, through pure psychic force, making another scanner's head explode like a rotten watermelon, with mint jelly and plaster used in practical effects. The explosion was originally supposed to open the film, a statement of Revik's godlike power. Revik leads an underground association of scanners plotting to overthrow normals and achieve world domination. Michael Ironside was initially hired for 1 day of filming before Cronenberg expanded his role substantially. Revik represents psychic power as psychological corruption. Unlike external monsters, his danger comes from invisible mental force. His self-trepanning and psychological control make him disturbing not for appearance, but for the glimpses into his fractured psyche. Eddie Jessup, transformed. Dr. Eddie Jessup, in Ken Russell's 1980 film Altered States, undergoes one of cinema's most extreme scientific transformations. His bone structure regressing into primitive ape-like form through sensory deprivation and hallucinogenic drugs. The character, played by William Hurt in his film debut, is a Harvard psychopathologist studying consciousness through sensory deprivation flotation tanks. His experiments combine isolated tank deprivation with a powerful Toltec psychedelic mushroom. His bone structure temporarily changes to something simian during one hallucination. His face reshapes, his jaw extends, his body morphs. In one extreme sequence, he becomes primitive man and travels to a zoo hunting for live animals to eat. Later transformations regress him even further, approaching a pre-human evolutionary stage. The film's climax features a surreal montage of cosmic images, with Jessup's body warping through various forms. Russell's visual effects for the transformation were groundbreaking for 1980s cinema. Jessup's transformation is disturbing because it's presented as scientifically plausible, a consequence of tampering with consciousness itself. His regression to evolutionary states represents the horror of losing humanity through our own scientific obsession. Rose. Rose, in David Cronenberg's 1977 film Rabid, becomes patient zero for a rabies-like plague after experimental plastic surgery implants a parasitic organ that gives her a straw-like proboscis for feeding. The character, played by Marilyn Chambers in her crossover from adult films to mainstream cinema, awakens from plastic surgery with a new pulsating organ located beneath her arm. She possesses a tubular, straw-like proboscis that extends from the organ and can penetrate skin and clothing. Rose uses this proboscis to feed on blood from people she encounters, similar to a mosquito. Each person she feeds on becomes infected with a rabies-like virus that spreads rapidly through the city. The condition manifests as increasingly violent and cannibalistic behavior in infected individuals. Chambers became known as porn's most famous crossover for this mainstream film role. Rose is unwillingly transformed into a parasitic creature through medical intervention gone wrong. Unlike serial killers who choose their victims, Rose becomes a vector for plague, despite being the victim of circumstance. By the way, if you're into content like this, I post videos like this all the time. I'd really appreciate a subscribe. Ricky Coogan, transformed. Ricky Coogan, in the 1993 black comedy Freaked, undergoes a grotesque partial transformation into a green, scaly, clawed monster after being exposed to the toxic mutagen Zygrot 24. The character, played by Alex Winter in the film directed by Tom Stern and written by Winter and Tim Burns, is a vain actor who travels to Central America to promote a toxic fertilizer. He's captured by mad scientist Elijah C. Skuggs and subjected to Zygrot 24, a chemical weapon that rapidly mutates victims. His transformation is partial and asymmetrical, One half of his body becomes grotesque, with bulging eyes, scaly green skin, and claws, while the other remains human. The character is thrown into a freak show with other mutated victims. Later in the film, Zygrod is applied to his remaining human half, transforming him into a cartoonish, hulking creature. The transformation is presented as both horrifying and absurdly comedic. Ricky's transformation is a punk rock satire on corporate evil and body horror. His mutation is unwilling and driven by capitalist greed, making him a victim of his own vanity and the corporation's depravity. The Brundlefly. Seth Brundle's gradual transformation into the Brundlefly in David Cronenberg's 1986 film The Fly stands as one of cinema's most tragic body horror journeys. As a brilliant scientist slowly loses his humanity to his own experiment, the character, played by Jeff Goldblum in one of Cronenberg's most acclaimed works, accidentally merges with a housefly during his teleportation experiment, causing a gradual and irreversible transformation. The film depicts 7 distinct stages of transformation, with Goldblum spending extensive hours in makeup chairs for each stage. Initial changes are subtle, including rash-like skin discoloration, facial lesions, and patches of fly hairs sprouting from his body. Later stages show piecemeal prosthetics covering his face, arms, feet, and torso, missing teeth and hair, and increasingly insectoid features. Brundle develops increased physical strength and stamina, new sexual potency, and the ability to stick to walls and ceilings. He begins vomiting digestive enzymes onto food to dissolve it before consumption, losing his human eating capacity. In the final stage, his entire human form deteriorates, replaced by an asymmetrical, grotesque, insectoid creature of distorted proportions. The film presents his transformation not as superhuman upgrade, but as disease and deterioration, destroying his humanity while increasing his physical capabilities. The Brundlefly represents the ultimate tragic body horror character, a genius watching himself become monstrous through his own creation. The film earns emotional weight because Goldblum plays Brundle with awareness and horror at his own transformation. Henry Spencer's child, the grotesque, barely human infant in David Lynch's 1977 film Eraserhead, is one of cinema's most disturbing creatures, a deformed, sickly, possibly non-human entity that represents parental anxiety and bodily violation. The creature appears as Henry Spencer's unwanted child in Lynch's debut feature film. It's presented as a swaddled bundle with an inhuman, deformed face resembling a spermatozoon. The child refuses all food and cries incessantly with a sound that drives everyone around it to psychological collapse. It develops painful sores across its body and struggles to breathe, appearing fundamentally unviable as a living being. The creature's true nature is ambiguous. Is it actually alive? Is it even human? In the film's climax, Henry stabs the creature's organs with scissors, and it grows to enormous proportions as the lights flicker. Lynch's inspiration reportedly came from the birth complications with his own daughter, making the film deeply personal and disturbing. The creature serves as manifestation of Henry's horror at fatherhood and bodily entrapment. This isn't a monster, something arguably more disturbing, a possibly human child that is fundamentally wrong. The ambiguity of its nature makes it more unsettling than any clearly alien creature. The Stuff. The Stuff is a sentient, parasitic organism disguised as a delicious dessert that consumes humanity from within in Larry Cohen's 1985 satirical horror film. The Stuff is a white, marshmallow-like substance that oozes from the Earth's interior. It's initially discovered by miners who taste it and find it irresistibly delicious. The substance is marketed as a revolutionary dessert product with no calories and no artificial ingredients. The Stuff is actually a living, parasitic organism that gradually takes over the brains of those who consume it. Infected individuals become zombie-like creatures, obsessed with consuming more stuff and spreading it to others. The organism can move independently, morph its consistency, and abandon dying host bodies. Victims often expel the stuff from their mouths uncontrollably as their bodies collapse. The film uses the stuff as satire on mindless consumerism and corporate greed. The stuff represents body horror through consumption rather than external mutation. It's disturbing because it works from inside, corrupting victims through their own voluntary consumption while making them complicit in spreading it. Beverly Mantle. Beverly Mantle, in David Cronenberg's 1988 film, Dead Ringers, is the sensitive, increasingly unhinged twin of a pair of gynecologists who descends into drug addiction and delusion about mutant women with abnormal anatomies. The character, played by Jeremy Irons in a dual role with both twins portrayed by Irons, is the shy, passive twin of identical gynecologist brothers operating a successful fertility practice in Toronto, while his extroverted twin Elliot seduces patients and then passes them to Beverly. Beverly begins developing emotional attachments. When actress Claire Neveu learns of the deception and leaves Toronto, Beverly descends into clinical depression. His depression triggers paranoid delusions about mutant women with abnormal genitalia that require specialized gynecological instruments. Beverly commissions mad sculptor Anders Wolek to create bizarre, menacing gynecological instruments for operating on these imaginary mutant women. He becomes increasingly addicted to prescription drugs, using his physician authority to obtain controlled substances. The film culminates in Beverly's complete psychological and physical deterioration. Beverly is disturbing through psychological unraveling rather than physical mutation. His obsession with female anatomy becomes increasingly unhinged and threatening, representing the dangerous intersection of clinical detachment and sexual pathology. The society members. The elite members of society in Brian Yuzna's 1989 body horror film can transform their bodies in anatomically impossible ways, merging and reshaping flesh like plasticine during grotesque feeding rituals. Society members possess the ability to shunt, shape-shifting their bodies through grotesque transformations. They can contort their flesh in completely anatomically impossible configurations. Breasts rotate to face the same direction as buttocks. Limbs extend like elastic. Bodies merge with other bodies. In one scene, protagonist Billy witnesses his sister Jenny twisting her body at impossible angles while moaning with apparent pleasure. The climax features a horrific sequence where society members merge with each other while consuming a victim, creating a writhing mass of fused flesh. Members can transform their body parts into weapons or tools. Hands morph into grasping appendages. Heads transform into giant hands. Their transformations are presented as indulgent, sexual rituals that provide pleasure to the perpetrators while devastating to witnesses. The makeup effects by Screaming Mad George created practical prosthetics that remain unsettling decades later. These characters represent corruption of the human form through their casual, pleasure-driven transformations. What makes them horrifying is that they enjoy their monstrosity and use their body control as weapon and instrument of predation. The hybrid creature. The grotesque octopus creature in Andrzej Zulawski's 1981 film Possession is born from Anna's body as a manifestation of her deteriorating marriage, existing as embodied passion and violence between two crumbling people. The creature begins as a blob of organic matter, growing from pipes and bathroom walls of the couple's apartment. It gradually develops into a tentacled torso with inset eyes, constantly dripping blood, and appearing to struggle with each breath. The creature has distinct development stages, becoming progressively more humanoid over time. It eventually transforms into a doppelganger of the husband, creating a cruel twist on the marriage's dissolution. The being survives through feeding on men sacrificed to it. specifically lovers that Anna provides. Zulawski intentionally presented the creature's development through practical effects and puppetry, rather than explaining its nature rationally. The creature represents the marriage's corruption made visible, less a separate monster and more a manifestation of the couple's psychological collapse. This creature is uniquely disturbing because it functions as metaphor made flesh. It's not alien, but psychological. The marriage is rot given physical form. The creature isn't the problem. It's a symptom of deeper human dysfunction. The Mark 13 cyborg. Mark 13 in Richard Stanley's 1990 film Hardware is a self-reconstructing government killing machine that rebuilds itself using household appliances and artistic materials in a claustrophobic apartment invasion. Mark 13 is a prototype government cyborg programmed as a genocide weapon. The robot is incredibly adaptable, rebuilding itself after destruction using available materials, including electronics, tools, household items, and even sculpture materials. It possesses advanced combat capabilities, including an electronically activated weapon system, night vision, and multiple primary and auxiliary limbs. The creature is an absolute determinator that cannot be stopped. Even when reduced to a head, it continues its mission. The film ends with a chilling revelation that the government plans to mass produce the Mark 13 after fixing its moisture vulnerability weakness. The robot's design blends industrial machinery with purposeful killing efficiency. Mark 13 is disturbing as conceptual horror, not grotesque in appearance, but terrifying in its adaptive relentlessness and the implication of government-sanctioned genocide. Job Smith. Job Smith, in the 1992 sci-fi thriller The Lawnmower Man, evolves from an intellectually disabled gardener into a godlike digital being through experimental brain stimulation and virtual reality, ultimately transcending physical form entirely. The character, played by Jeff Fahey in the film directed by Brett Leonard and written by Leonard and Gimel Everett, is a simple-minded gardener hired as a test subject by scientist Dr. Lawrence Angelo. Angelo uses nootropic drugs combined with virtual reality simulations to boost Job's intelligence. Job's transformation grants him superhuman abilities, including psychokinesis, telepathy, and extraordinary intelligence. However, the treatment also increases his aggression and megalomaniacal tendencies. Job eventually enters the VSI mainframe computer, abandoning his physical body and becoming a being of pure digital consciousness. When trapped in the mainframe by Angelo, Job uses psychic power to crucify Angelo's digital form. Job ultimately escapes into networked computer systems worldwide, existing within every connected computer. Job's transformation represents the ultimate evolution, transcendence of physical limitations through technology. Yet his ascension is presented as terrifying, not triumphant. The film suggests that removing human limitations removes human ethics. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.